Yes, sir. And I, Rasnigos, time is come for the lion to tell a lion own story, you know? Yeah, listen to the lion voice. Rastafari. Right.
Amina, the time has come for the lioness to tell our own story. No surrender, no retreat, we are Jaja soldier. Rougher than the streets, tougher than a boulder. Bigging up Lamb's voice. Now put it. I Jolly for said that.
I didn't know how much the psychological warfare Ethiopians waged against the Italians at Adwa.
Okay.
And I did not know how much, I told my father, like I was saying in the film, I was having a hard time that Italians would be defeated by my backward people because I think of my people backward.
Yes.
How can they win the people I worship like God? And my father says, this is the problem when you don't know the mindset of the people. That's why you would ask like that.
Yes.
Because I said, is it to make us feel good? What is this? And he was saying, Ethiopians did not think of themselves below the Italians. They took them as they came. And he said, even like, for example, he said the bullets, Ethiopians were like, when every bullet was hitting them at Adwa, they thought it was a flea bug. And they would scratch the area and still fighting. And he said it's later after many bullets hit them, the blood overtakes them, the pouring out blood takes them,
Yes.
And so he said the bullet, they're not psychologically
Afraid of
they
the
didn't
bullet.
die by the bullet because they didn't think the bullet is bigger than their courage. I was a son of an intellectual, barefoot intellectual
Yes.
in the traditional context, and I was thrown into Western value without having the utensils to select the good, the bad, and the ugly. Their soldiers were a majority Africans.
That's
Sudan,
thank you
Nigeria,
for
Somalia, British Somalia, British Nigeria, Sudan. These were the people who came. Even Sikh Indians at the Battle of Karen in the Eritrean region, 5,000 Sikh Indians died. We have not a single monument for them.
Wow.
Yeah, we have Churchill Godana. We have Sanford School.
But that's the politics, because the
No,
British
it's not
are
really. It's
coming.
not. It's our. No, it's something we never got rid of. We worship white people. Africans, majority that died for us, they all led by 3 South African whites or 3 Australians or 5 British officers. The majority are Africans. And so okay, have Churchill Godana.
Yeah.
Why not have it for those Nigerians, Tanzanians, Kenyans, Sudanese, who died for us? The fact, it just shows you de-evaluate their participation, you de-evaluate yourself, and therefore Ethiopia's, what happened to Ethiopia was never valued right because it's not, it's reciprocatory. When you think Africans did not die for you, but whites died for you or fought for you, although they, to me, you're saying Ethiopians didn't die for you. And that's really what created chaos in the emperor's period. The Ethiopian elite, like all African elites in the diaspora and in Africa, lack vision. It's not, there's no alternative. It's vision. So to me, the idea of false modernization and the fact that we take European civilization as the ultimate goal dehumanized our humanity and at the same time made us subservient and spectators of white European history making process. In so doing, we abdicated to create a generation of history makers. Now the emperor himself comes out of history makers, the Giyasu, Emperor, Emperor Haile Selassie, Empress Zewditu, all this, the traditional school gave birth of them. And so I don't understand the dichotomy of modern school was not, the idea was what is modern school?
Yes.
And the Japanese were actually Actually, in Ethiopia, there was a discussion in the period I was growing up
Okay.
that, there was a book called How Japan Modernized. And to me, I don't think we took it seriously in the elite circle of the power structure of Haile Selassie.
So,
Ethiopia's Pan-African heart
mhm,
is not written about. I myself have never gone towards the research and scholarship that is needed. In my view, when you don't have political history makers, you would lack true cultural historians, true history historians. Up to now, from the time of the Emperor Haile Selassie, to me, history has been relegated to a political analysis. Politics is an art of deception. It just simplifies it to stupid people.
mhm,
But Ethiopia has a complex history. Even the idea of Judeo-Christian is a dichotomy pushed by Zionists about Ethiopia.
mhm,
I don't believe that's the history.
mhm,
When we look at the origin of the Nile Valley,
mhm,
when you look at the Kush, the fire, the people who invented fire
mhm,
first, when you look at the subsequent civilizations out of the Nile Valley,
mhm,
then what you see is not really, it's all locally emerging spiritual ideas.
mhm.
The idea that Queen of Sheba went to Solomonic dynasty has always been an insult to me personally. If somebody is disgruntled like me, I think this film will provoke a lot of fire within people. A lot of young people, I think, will take it and make much more outstanding films because they will know these resources exist,
Mhm.
these materials existed, but there's also a hidden material that Africans are not accessing in the Library of Congress, in Europe, and I made this for myself first,
Yes.
and for whoever is destabilized like me about one's history. And if they don't feel they're destabilized, if they feel we're appendages to European idea of civilization, I have no film for them.
Well, lion voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion voice. Well, this a battle in Adwa, Ethiopian. It's time to stand on the parade, Mama Africa. Battle in Adwa, I see tens of thousands of soldiers. Now in the warrior, they're fighting in Adwa. Tell them that no slave master could ever come take over Africa. Battle in Adwa, tell them see the ark of the covenant, them won't come take over.
They tried to ambush, push. Didn't know the power lion, we run the bush. Chop down the wicked with sword and flesh hook. All the great Rasmakonen. Ride on them horse and slew off them gunmen. In judgment, Italy you found filthy. In the Vatican where they practice necromancy. Bakula Adwa 1896. Get whipped with stones and sticks. I know this.
What do you have to tell the people about Rastafari?
Light to the world. King of kings and the conquering line of the tribe of Judah. I like himself. Where's rightful ruler? Hey yo! Yeah! Hail them high, hail the black king on the 23rd of July. So tell them guy who praise God up in the sky, it's a lie. The Almighty living on your
I
night.
heard of that.
From ancient time them a try. Them Romans know them just open them suit and ties. Criminals ain't got no alibi, they stole my people. Then them comes without them genocide.
Are you talking about slavery?
Them couldn't kill the lion we come conquer Judah tribe.
Who?
Go through tribulation, I and I strive, see sufferation, I and I still rise. That's why we tell them in America, live Rastafari in every ghetto area. We come to tell them in a Toronto, straight at
Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of His chosen Queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Banso, aka the Chasmach Kwasi, aka Ras Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man, creative industry attorney. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of Lion Talk. We have a very special guest here today. I am at Sankofa Bookstore, one of my campuses as a young Ras coming to Howard University. I have here one of my teachers, so you may hear me get reprimanded during this interview. This is how we interact. I've been looking forward to this for many years. However, I'm here on a mission. As you can see, we have here legendary filmmaker Haile Gerima. We are in the studio, exclusive access to one of our greatest African filmmakers. He's in the midst of developing a new project, and we're going to talk about this new project. And we're going to put some money where our mouth is as Rastafari. My Jegna does not believe that we as Rastafari can come through economically, and I want to demonstrate what we've built here with the Lion Pride. So we're going to have the contribution information in the description from all over the world. I want the contributions to coming for this film. I say that the Lions have to tell our own story, and this we are sitting here with the pinnacle of African storytelling, filmmaking. Many have seen Sankofa, Teza. We can keep on going through the titles, but again, I just want to take the time to welcome my Jegna Haile Gerima. It's early morning.
Trying to wake up.
Yes. Thank you for agreeing to this.
Thank you for having me, my brother.
Give thanks. So please, for the audience that's not familiar with who you are, where were you born, and what was your journey to filmmaking?
Well, I was born in Gondar, Ethiopia,
Yes.
and went to school in Ethiopia. I came to the United States at 21, and went to film school at UCLA.
Yes.
And basically, most of my time was spent teaching at Howard University. For 43 years, that's all. That's
I don't know if people know how special you are. At Howard University, the trajectory is you come there, you know nothing, you take an African diaspora class, you get conscious, then you go across the street to Sankofa. That's your next step once your mind is open. You've been here as a beacon of consciousness, and you're one of the last surviving. When I was here, we had Pyramid Books, we had about 4 or 5 bookstores. What was the passion that you had to not just teach at Howard, but establish this Sankofa bookstore, this Pan-African oasis?
well, basically, me and Sharik, we've always wanted to have a cultural center where people not only just read books, but also read films, visual stories, not just take it as entertainment. And then it took us years, but we, thanks to the community, thanks to the support we got with the film, the Sankofa, we were able to, create this what we call liberated territory for intellectual evolution.
What was the vision to make you, as an Ethiopian, born in Ethiopia, to make a film like Sankofa, which is for many of us one of our seminal transatlantic slave films, in terms of that journey? What inspired someone born in East Africa, legendary Gondar, to tell that story?
Well, there's more, so I would say my effort has always been, I come very miseducated in Ethiopia. I didn't know anything about the African diaspora or the history or enslavement. And so when I first came, I gravitated towards this community and wanted to know more about the historical circumstances that placed them in this hemisphere. And so it's actually, just an endeavor to know Black people, as something that I obsessively went into because of the fact that I was not aware of it. I was lied by, this education, and so for me, it's critical for Africa to understand what happened to our people that we deported out of the continent. And so it's my effort first for me to understand, and then in the process share my story that I invented to people who also want to, share my take on it.
You're one of the first Ethiopian elders that I ever encountered as a young man. We're talking about the mid-90s here. And you were very critical of the emperor. particularly when we first met,
Mhm.
I would say that you're a product of the education system that was created during his reign. We talk about education on this platform, the emperor assuming the title of Minister of Education, the portfolio, rapid expansion of literacy and education. But what I learned from talking to you was the other side, the downside of expanding education so rapidly. What were the things that you were learning in Gandhar, and who were your teachers? What did education look like for you as a young boy?
It's not only Gondar. I was
Yeah.
also educated in my high school in Jimma in Addis Ababa.
Okay, so
And so to me, it's basically my generation was miseducated with all the great work the emperor is known for that I don't have to pound on. In terms of the fact that our educational infrastructure was handed to the British, especially after the Italian occupation, created a generation of miseducated people that backfired not only on Ethiopia, her history, but also on the emperor himself. And so the generation I come from is a very miseducated generation, and at the same time, it felt or usurped the task of championing the oppressed people of Ethiopia's struggle. And I think when you don't know your country, chaos is set in motion. So for me, all the chaos I see from the time the emperor was overthrown is a result of miseducated generation that meant well initially, maybe the ideological struggle was to me in the end artificial because you don't see the payment, and so all the in my view all the investment of the Ethiopian peasants and people through that period was spent. Taxpayers' money was spent for us to be miseducated. And so for me, the investment of the Ethiopian people's sweat did not, in the end, was not served well by my generation. So basically, that's the way I see it, and it's to this day. I don't know people can continue to romanticize, but Ethiopia is still in gyration, complete gyration, not recovered from that chaotic period of miseducating a whole generation. And when I talk about miseducation, I'm really talking about like the Woodson Carter take on miseducation of the Africans in the diaspora.
Okay. What options do you think the emperor had at that time to expand the education? Of course, the church was against public education. The nobility, was happy with, the state of the peasant class that were serving the regional kings and governors. A young Rastaf, because remember in his early reign, he was started as very progressive and way out there in terms of opposing the traditions that were, some of these in place hundreds, if not thousands of years. Africa was under colonial rule. He did try to reach out to African Americans. At first, that was stymied by the State Department. So it's almost like you have no good options. Now that you're an elder, what do you think could have been done differently in terms of the implementation of mass education in Ethiopia?
To me, I think the Ethiopian elite, like all African elites in the diaspora and in Africa, lack vision. There's no alternative. It's vision. So to me, the idea of false modernization and the fact that we take European civilization as the ultimate goal, dehumanized our humanity, and at the same time made us subservient and spectators of white European history making process. In so doing, we abdicated to create a generation of history makers. Now the emperor himself comes out of history makers, the Jiasu, Emperor, you know, Emperor Haile Selassie, Empress Zodi too. All this, the traditional school gave birth of them. And so I don't understand the dichotomy of modern school was not, the idea was what is modern school? And the Japanese were actually in Ethiopia, there was a discussion in the period I was growing up
Okay.
that, there was a book called How Japan Modernized. And to me, I don't think we took it seriously in the elite circle of the power structure of Haile Selassie. So for me, it's not. I'm Ethiopian. I'm from there. My father's a history maker, traditional playwright.
Yes.
And so my optics is the fact that I was a son of an intellectual, barefoot intellectual
Yes.
in the traditional context. And I was thrown into Western value without having the utensils to select the good, the bad, and the ugly. So when you do this, we can all have romantic planet and pass, but in the end, Ethiopian elites have failed to account the continent, one of the richest continents in the world. We cannot justify. We were born and die as spectators of white history making process, as well as an industry of killing, an industry of disease, an industry of weapon. This is not a vision that the elite should be proud of. So for me, Emperor Haile Selassie, I think on his elite, I would say his whole structure, he didn't run it by himself. The elite was completely sold on the very education they went into. That's the European education. And to me, from Emperor Menelich's time, which is very, very important, modernization kicked in really at that time.
Yes.
They had a strong agony about what to do about Ethiopian, educating young Ethiopians. They brought Europeans, they start changing Ethiopians. Then Menelik says, what about sending them there, not bring Europeans here, sending our students there? And then they come back, they look down upon the people because they went to school in Europe. So this was a serious agony being debated in a very interesting way during the time of Menelik. And I didn't see, the elite that came subsequently, protecting its offsprings. It's not enough to have schools all over like even after the emperor, there are many political groups that can brag they made many universities all over the place. But the issue is what is the
What's
salad
the
bar of education? What are you teaching people? What is the what is the nutrition? What's the national educational diet? The salad bar of education is very European, very American, very Western. And to me, Ethiopia has a history that is compatible to any history in the world. I'm not going to say a romantic planet existed, but Ethiopians with barefoot Ethiopians build a history that is amazing. That makes you say, dang, these people, the protocol of, culture, system, art, crafts, language, the idea of trying to synthesize the best of, what the different Ethiopian groups can offer. All these things, to me, they were not perfect, but imperfectly being thought about, got lost in the process. And then we became, yes, a lot of people say Ethiopia is free. Yes, the brief occupation, Italian. No. But after the Italian War, the British occupied the intellectual mindset of Ethiopians, where our thought system was changed from thinking in our respective languages into English thinking. And when you begin to tamper with the thinking of a people, you lost the war. There's no Africa without the thinking autonomy, the perspective of that thought system Once you lose that, battle is lost. So for me, these are things as a filmmaker that I agonize over. How do you? What are the things? And I'm not going to say I have the answer, but I know the crisis is that. That's why I'm in America. I shouldn't be in America. I shouldn't be in America. But why am I in America? And it's not only me. A generation of uh, people went to Russia, France, Germany, and America, and these are the actors of change. And no wonder the idea of change catapulted into a disaster.
I would say sometimes the creator have its own plan because
I
you
don't
have
agree with that. I don't.
you've impacted thousands in America.
No, my
And
brother.
that's
No,
not
I don't. I would have. Let me tell you, my father would have done better than I. He was more educated. Me, I'm like very, all over the place, chaotically trying to find myself. But there were solid Africans in Ethiopia who were like, who have the mindset of uh, autonomous existence and history making process. So for me, it's how you use the historical moment afforded to you. You can, one generation can passively observe, sit around and wait. Others, they take the helm of change it for a better transformation. This is where we failed. In Africa, we can't give it to God, we can't give it to the devil, we can't give it to angels. We have failed to provide our people a life of a life of peace, a life of no war, no killing each other. What is that? What is art? Killing doesn't need no education. You don't need certificate, no degree. You just, and we kill each other not to even protect our family, not to take the gold for ourselves. We die for white people in Europe and America, kill each other for their benefit, so that which white man should own a diamond is how we died. And I refuse to accept that African existence. I refuse to accept that. We were not born to be that.
Ethiopia presents a problem for the Pan-Africanists because of the Judeo-Christian heritage that Ethiopia so proudly represents. Even at Adwa, which I would say is the pinnacle of Pan-African resistance, we have a Christian monarch and his Christian empress waving this flag. How do you reconcile, or do you consider that Judeo-Christian identity as part of the problem or the issue? Now, I look at the Hebrews as an African people, but I know that even in your time with the socialist revolution, there was a lot of pushback against this whole Solomonic dynasty, and so how do you reconcile? And then to compound the problem, Ethiopia was Christian before Europe.
Well, the problem here is, I think, up to now, what's Ethiopia's Pan-African heart is not written about. I myself have never gone towards the research and scholarship that is needed. In my view, when you don't have political history makers, you would lack true cultural historians, true history historians. Up to now, from the time of the Emperor Haile Selassie, to me, history has been relegated to a political analysis. Politics is an art of deception. It just simplifies it to stupid people. But Ethiopia has a complex history. Even the idea of Judeo-Christian is a dichotomy pushed by Zionists about Ethiopia. I don't believe that's the history. When we look at the origin of the Nile Valley, when you look at the Kush, the fire, the people who invented fire first, when you look at the subsequent civilizations out of the Nile Valley, then what you see is not really, it's all locally emerging spiritual ideas. The idea that Queen of Sheba went to Solomonic dynasty has always been an insult to me personally, because I don't believe an Ethiopian queen went looking for a man and have a son by Solomon. That's a mythology created that I think warped, the actual true history of Ethiopia. For me, that fable does not serve us much. I don't see, for me, from everything that culminated into Aksum, the Aksum, Ethiopia has had a local, fundamentally a local, even if there was influence in religious ideas, but local evolved, rituals of religion, or the practice of religion. Even Catholic religion, once it came to Ethiopia, it was Ethiopianized. It's like the Brazilian Catholics. When you go to look at Catholic in Brazil, you see Africa densely existing, literally destroying the Catholic ritual. Africa, just the culture, not a blatant armed struggle, but the culture of religion itself fights anti-colonialism. So even in Brazil, enslaved population brought Africa into their temple. In Ethiopia, some of the rituals, even Catholic Ethiopians practice, is very Ethiopian. It's not approved by Rome, the Vatican. That shows you the virility of the Ethiopian culture when it interacts with, because it comes from central and it doesn't take in to disappear. Historically, I'm not going to say there was no influence here. No, the dense or the decisive power and force of this kind of cultural evolution is central first. Ethiopian, whatever it is, from the Nile, from the Kush, that culminated. Ethiopia had a very dense, decisive, historical, cultural presence. Everything came, never overwhelmed her in the way we got overwhelmed after the Italian occupation. This is what people miss. So for me, I would say, the fable idea that Queen of Sheba went to Solomon, does it make us civilizational? Does it give us isn't it anti-African? It's like when you go marry from, leaving your continent to somewhere else, what does it say about the women or men you have, the beautiful? How many men did she walk over, denying them her love? Ethiopians that she grew up with, who can sing the song to her, who can say I love you in her thought system, in her language. How in the hell can you rationalize that history? So to me, I think we brought this false history to put ourselves in a mousetrap that denies us the history-making process that I insist personally is lacking. So for me, I don't buy that. I don't think my father, who was a priest, bought that. Tohodo, Ethiopia, is very, very African fundamentally. Very African. It's very Cushitic in its practice, when you look at it. But we can say it came from where, it came from there, because it's like what my sister said one time. They were they were arguing in Ouagadougou with this neo-colonial elites, and she said, we Africans, if we found, we always think it, so and so came from Europe to validate its substantive nature. And she was talking about, I think, why don't we, instead of taking European language as our culture, our communicative idea, why don't we just at least look for African option like Wolof, et cetera. And she said, but somebody says, but Wolof has German in it. No, you can say that, but German has Wolof in it, not maybe Wolof has German in it. Why don't you think reversely? Why do you always think if you find a fork in the middle of the heart of Africa, you think it came from Europe? You could not imagine Africans made it once when they melted iron. Yes. And to me, that's like a very powerful argument to say to people, don't always think it came from somewhere because you are incapable of making history or making industry or creating industry. The people before you, your ancestors, their capacity is is as enormous as any civilization. Why don't you think it like that? So to me, I think the Ethiopian elite, from the military junta all the way to mullahs, and now they talk about backward people. Halakar in Amharic, they say we are halakar. You are halakar. The moment the power you're in now, you is incapable of making history, not your ancestors. So to me, how can you take down your ancestors for your own ineptness, not affecting a historical process that is worth being dynamic by itself? So to me, when you are miseducated, you always think, everything came from your mother tongue, which is English or Portuguese or French. You always think it came from there because that's how they have modified your thinking system. And so for me, this Judeo-Christian has never been tangled by really, African scholars who know Ge'ez, who knows Tigrinya, who knows Amharinya, who knows Orominya, all different, because you find these languages intersecting coexistently. Okay.
They're all part of the
Afro-Asiatic. Yeah. There's no, Ethiopian. The years of Ethiopian empire building has been the melting of Ethiopia.
Yes.
Not maybe fairly, equally, etc., but there was so much intersectioning going on. But now, thanks to Europe, we only know the division. We are going with scissors, dividing everything, glued by life and death and war.
Yes.
And it's not peace that built Ethiopia, war too, to create a whole nation. Yet they turn around, England, nobody seems to talk about in what quilt Anglo-Saxon England was made out of.
Yes.
The United States is a quilt of many states, and Native Americans and African Americans.
And war too.
Yeah, but if we come to Africa, we advocate, Europeans and Americans advocate secession, division, because it helps them rob our land, our continent.
Yes. They want to return us to the era of princes.
Yeah.
So they can take the minerals.
Yeah.
How do you look at the Falasha tradition, which is, a lot of people don't realize the Falasha don't like the Solomonic tradition themselves. They have a completely different origin story. And
I'm from that area, by the way,
Okay.
but Falasha is misrepresented by Zionist interpretation again.
Okay.
Scholars from UCLA, scholars from University of Chicago, they wrote about it, abstracting. But study what my father wrote.
Yes.
My father wrote from the traditional.
What's your father's name?
Gerima Tafare.
Okay.
Now his take is Falasha means uprooted.
Yes.
Uprooted. Why is Falasha? Now it's with all this Ethiopians, miseducated Ethiopians, all of us, we talk stuff that we don't know. Falasha means uprooted. Now, why did this happen? King Sisinios, at the period when he wanted to turn Ethiopia into Catholic, the ones that were cantankerously rebelling against that were the people now called Falasha. But they're Tohodo. Their ritual is Tohodo.
Okay.
Tohodo Ethiopian. Not this, even Orthodox is not our, the name of our, our people's religion.
Okay.
It's put by, outsiders, Orthodox Ethiopia. No, Tohodo Ethiopia implicitly means something else.
Okay.
So the Falasha group, which became negative as the Zionists picked up to create this fabricate the history of schism between Ethiopians and a group of Falashas. I grew up, my neighbors are those folks categorized as Falasha. So when the emperor designated them from here on, you did not accept they were like the best of Ethiopia for saying, no, I'm not converting into Catholicism.
Yes.
And he condemned them to be uprooted from the land and said, from here on, you don't have a land, you don't farm. And then they became innovatively artisans. They made the farming tools, they made the utensils like potteries, etc., because they could not farm anymore. That at least, even if you disagree with it, should be historically that's what happened.
Yes.
What morphed is not what happened.
Yes.
So for me, the Falasha are my brothers and sisters. And the idea is that they have a different new history, politicized new history. Why not say it's economic migration? Why don't we say Ethiopians went to Israel for economic migration?
Yes.
Because Ethiopia is the center of Israel. In the first place, Ethiopia is the only country that really contests Israeli mythology.
Yes, it does.
Okay, so for me, it's a misrepresentation or misinterpretation of history intentionally. Otherwise, it doesn't mean that. Now, I'm not going to say it was right. He uprooted. Well, it returned. Tuahdo returned. So he did not succeed to Catholicize Ethiopia, but they were the cantankerous group who refused to be converted into Catholicism.
Yes.
Yeah, but their ritual is not far from what Tohado spiritual practices.
And even Sostenos' son swung the pendulum the other way and had to show he was.
Yeah, but the problem is history is not important. When you want to lie, like many Ethiopians were here in America lying, we were oppressed. The Derg killed my daddy, and then Mullas killed my sister. He put my father in prison. But all the people, when you lie to get American idea, like when you were colonized and you want to come to America, you would do anything. That's the vocabulary of colonized people by the empire of America, the new empire. We have a lot of justifications.
Yes.
So for me, economic migration is economic migration. That's a fact of life.
They went for a better life.
Oh yeah,
yes.
Better. They live better. Is that the case? But then again, there will remain these cantankerous Ethiopians. Israel really exported a problem, in my view, because Ethiopians are not. Once they get what they want, the first, take me. I'm more radical than I would ever be because I came here because of my mistakes. I'm angry at myself. Because of my Peace Corps teachers, I'm angry at them. Because of my Ethiopian teachers, I'm angry at them. I ended up here, but hopefully I take responsibility of my own culpritness into the process of decolonizing myself. So for me, most Ethiopians, we don't accept our initial journey. We try to justify a much more noble reason of why we went. As far as I'm concerned, we're economic migration because our country fails us. Our elite fails us. To me, that is the story. In Israel too.
You made one of the seminal films, which was Adwa, an African story. I went to the premiere. I saw, I spoke with you making the film, and I saw the launch. What does Adwa represent for the Pan-African community, and why did you make that film?
One Ethiopian mindset, the dinosaur Ethiopians that I don't think we are now. To me, it represents people who don't have idea of being subordinate, cannot fathom. It's like unbelievable. They cannot fathom being subordinate to anybody, especially to the white race. And so Adwa just exemplifies that. That's why Pan-Africanists all over the Americas, they hoisted Ethiopia as a banner. This is what people do not know. Most African countries, their flag begins with the Ethiopian idea.
Yes.
So for a lot of the African elite that was very anti-colonialist, Ethiopia just stood special. And I think that's what people responded to. And I realized I learned it from black people in America. How much Adwa meant to them.
Yes.
And I started going back asking my father when I returned to Ethiopia, because it's African Americans and Caribbeans who just know Ethiopian history more than I. And then say, oh, my country must be great. It's a bad way of arriving to your own psychic, So
yes, because you started with Sankofa, predates Adwa, and now I noticed now you have really focused on your own
Yeah,
history.
because I think what the African diaspora has made me return to my Ethiopian, finding my Ethiopian self, and find this the mindset of Ethiopians. The Ethiopians I call are dinosaurs, not the
Yes.
modern Ethiopians. The mindset of Ethiopians, the integrity,
Hmm.
right or wrong, the integrity of standing for one thing. You find them where you left them. Now, so much chameleonship in our culture. You turn this there, you turn this another duplicate. It's like AI Ethiopians everywhere. So for that kind of period, that kind of people, and also their mindset, it's like I didn't know how much the psychological warfare
Yes.
Ethiopians waged against the Italians at Adwa.
Okay.
And I did not know how much, I told my father, like I was saying in the film, I was having a hard time that Italians would be defeated by my backward people because I think of my people backward.
Yes.
How can they win the people I worship like God? And my father says, this is the problem when you don't know the mindset of the people. That's why you would ask like that.
Yes.
Because I said, is it to make us feel good? What is this? And he was saying, Ethiopians did not think of themselves below the Italians. They took them as they came. And he said, even like, for example, he said the bullets, Ethiopians were like, when every bullet was hitting them at Adwa, they thought it was a flea bug, and they would scratch the area and still fighting. And he said it's later after many bullets hit them, the blood overtakes them, pouring out blood takes them,
Yes.
And so he said the bullet, they're not psychologically
Afraid of
they
the
didn't
bullet.
die by the bullet because they didn't think the bullet is bigger than their courage.
Yes.
So it's like a very powerful telling.
That's
And
the first I've
yeah,
heard
so
that.
it's a film I really made, the things that made me be aware of this dinosaur Ethiopians. And it's the Ethiopians, when I say this, not one group, it's a whole, it's one war that had the representation of every warrior, regional warrior was
Yes.
at Adwa.
Yes. It's a Pan-African story
Yeah,
because there was a lot of deep division in the country
yeah,
prior.
yeah,
Ras Mengasha famously and Ras Alula
yeah,
bearing the hatchet with Emperor Menelik, their
yeah,
own pride, which
yeah,
I think won the war because
yeah.
had that division
No,
continued,
yeah, but it's
would.
still
Yeah.
Menelik's political uh, power, in my view,
Yes.
because he was going to go to war with Ras Mangasha, but he changed his mind and
Yes.
just said, and then Ras Alula put them together back. So initially, he was going to go to war. The Italians wanted Tigray and the Tigray house,
Showa, yeah.
Emperor Yohannes's house,
Yes.
and Menelik's house to go to war. Showa house, I
Yes.
should say.
Yes.
Tigray house and Showa's house.
Yes.
Yeah, but to me, I think there was an amazing. Menelik, I think, was unlike when he was younger. As he got wiser, he was a very interesting statesman. Advice was very, very seriously taken.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we can't forget Title. I'm a
Yeah.
defender of Emperor Menelik. It's become in vogue to criticize Menelik now because of the Oromo grievances. Some of them justified, but I defend Menelik. And one of the big criticisms of Menelik is why did he go on to Eritrea? Why did he leave that bulkhead of Italian in Eritrea?
Yeah, well, I think that's a serious criticism. But they have three, four answers. It's a complex issue.
Yes.
Had he gone, would he still succeed with the remaining issue of weapon, arms, and
Food.
and nutrition? Yeah,
Yes.
and ration. So but still he as I think that's a bad to this day a bad legacy or a wrong
Yes.
or a very poor legacy that we have to face. It brought a lot of crisis in
A lot of
Ethiopia, the
crisis.
Eritrean issue, etc. But I think in terms of, Menelik with the Oromo issue, is one. The it's, different kings. First, for me, I have a problem. Menelik is not just pure anything. It's a mixture of
Yeah,
the
of course.
Oromo.
Of
Yeah,
course. He has Oromo, of
yeah.
course.
Haile
Yes.
Selassie is
Oromo
Oromo
too.
and Gurage,
Yes.
etc. So to me, the idea I think misses that there is this regional power with Menelik. Menelik's rule uh, is not without the regional kings of the Oromo, the Walaita, the king of Jimma. This is like the regional kings.
Yes.
Nothing, I mean, yes, Menelik took taxes from this regional kings, etc. Yeah, go to Europe and history, study Europe, any country. That is a fact of life. At the same time, criticism is to bring together, and do a better history making process is good, but to go into division and splitting hair,
Yes.
no one is free of anything, in my view, because we took the different regions of Ethiopia played principal role in oppressing one way or another each other
Exactly.
historically.
Yes.
So to me, even the Sicilians time, Oromo is not this pure cattle nomadic people. It's warriors,
Of
fierce
course, of
warriors,
course.
and uh, you got to look
In
at
the era of princes, they were ruling Ethiopia.
the dialectics.
The Yuju Oromo were
Yeah, the
ruling.
dialectics
Yeah.
also.
Yeah.
Also the so-called, the different regions, the history of war in Ethiopia to create the Ethiopian, that idea of Ethiopianism
Yes.
is not without blood, without
A
death.
lot.
No
Yes.
one was not spared. No one was spared. It's a lie to
Yes.
make it only one group. No one was spared because
Yes.
when elites are building a nation, the casualties are enormous. Study Europe, study France,
China.
China. So to me, I'm saying it's nothing, but in Africa, fanned by Europeans in different motives, it gets very lethally dangerous.
Yes.
We kill each other over it. And that is stupid. It's very important. I come from a region, a poor region, and that's called Gondar, the heart of Amaras. It's a poor region I come from.
Yes.
I grew up poor. Okay. Jimma kids lived better than I, who owned coffee plants. All my high school kids had coffee they owned. Okay, coffee plantation they owned. That's rich kids.
Wow.
In Gondar, my brother, it's another story. But it's not to say again they're not Gondar nobility, Begum nobility, Gojam nobility, Shaw, etc. It's not to deny that, but I'm just saying when I I don't want people come my face that the area I come from benefited throughout the historical kingdom. No way. Even at the time of Tedros, which we are, our region is where he comes out.
Okay.
His whole period to unite Ethiopia, to create, because we are difficult people. We paid prices because we were the problem for his idea of Ethiopianism.
Never lost a war on the battlefield.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So to me, he went all the way to this way, that way, punished everybody, including the region he comes from, because we were not easily flocking into the Ethiopian idea.
No.
The regional, your own chiefs or your own regional leaders meant more your country, and he was trying to create a larger space. Historically a good idea, but it's not something that everybody went for, and those who resisted got punished. Menelik's time. And the same thing with Tedros. I mean, I meant Tedros' time, but the same thing with Menelik time.
Yes, of course.
So for me, everything we benefited came out of the melting and burning of Ethiopia through so much war, fare. Gold is melted by fire.
Yes.
It doesn't become gold automatically. But I see the fire I understand the fire, but I don't get stuck to the fire because I've seen worst fire in other contexts. And in our case, the fact that we created a gold called Ethiopia, and then our job is to, interpret a new Ethiopia in a more humane, constructive way, not in a very vengeful, stupid, and dumb way.
Being manipulated by the CIA and these other agencies.
Yeah, the way they
to
did South
destroy.
Sudan.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
Tedros, one of the things he did, and Nkrumah did this as well, is that he would capture the children of the nobility and he educated them together. A lot of people don't know Menelik, Johannes, all of them were at Magdala as children, educated together. They knew each other. Titus' brothers were at Magdala. This nobility, one of the great things that Tedros did in terms of fusing that common identity. I want to bring us up to the movie that you're doing now. The task, in light of what you said of a young Rastafari trying to unite, and he doesn't come from the strongest bloodline. To unite all of these houses that by time 1930 comes and the coronation and the European powers are coming, Ethiopia is relatively unified in terms of a modern state. What was that struggle like in terms of your study? Because I know you've gone very in depth in terms of the lead up to the war, this modernization that was happening. How difficult was it for Rastafari to arrive at the coronation where he had Tigray coming, he has Wallo, he has all of these people who historically don't like them and don't think he is even worthy, to the extent that maybe them, I could talk about Ras Hailo, for example, of Gojam, who we know who was very opposed. What was that like? Just set the context for.
Well, these guys
the
that grew up
invasion.
together, all of them
Yeah.
grew up together.
Yes.
And so they were there at his coronation.
Yes.
Ras Hailu, Ras
Yes.
Siyum, all of
Yes.
them were there. Even the one that actually, Gugsa,
Yes.
Haile Selassie Gugsa, who actually is married to his daughter but
Yes.
betrayed Ethiopia earlier. So those were friends. They were very friends. They grew up together and
Yeah.
they were educated, by this idea of Ethiopians' historical legacy of creating elites from all the different groups. So they know each other, and but deep down the power struggle remains because that's the fact of life. That I would do it better, I should be the king, etc. is there. But at the time he was coronated, they were there. I have pictures of it here.
Okay.
Now, for me, I think where the emperor to me went wrong, in my view, again, is his idea of modernizing the military.
Okay.
Because modernizing the military did not integrate well with the traditional Ethiopian, I would say, warfare that the world knew.
Explain what the traditional Ethiopian warfare
Ethiopian
is.
traditional warfare is guerrilla warfare. It comes from ideas of hunters. It comes fundamentally with the idea of attack, retreat, encircle. These things that became great with, Ho Chi Minh, Mao, and Che Guevara, and they recite Ethiopians from this when they speak of guerrilla warfare.
Okay.
So this is a traditional Ethiopian technique of warfare, mountain coming down, but always, in fact, to a point, I'll tell you, remind me, their Wingate, the British boy who
Yes.
came to Ethiopia, the British military guy who
Yes.
came to Ethiopia,
Bonal Wingate,
yeah,
yes.
who was claimed to have, he just, what got lost is the Ethiopians who were fighting guerrilla warfare up till, 1941 is when the British and the emperor arrived.
Yes.
Before that, 6 years, 5 years
5
especially,
years,
and
yes.
6 in Jimma and Gondar, Ethiopians were fighting guerrilla warfare. They went back to their traditional warfare. because they lost 6 major battles as as commissioned by the emperor. Takaze, Shire, Temben, Ambaradom, Maicho, finally, where the emperor was.
Famous
Yeah,
Macho, yes.
yeah. So to me, the problem here is this: the modern army, not that they had enough. They were one blockage.
Yeah.
Blockade. They blocked Ethiopia from receiving arms. Even
Yes.
African Americans were trying to send arms. Caribbeans are buying arms to send. The U.S. embargoed them not to send
Yes.
any guns.
Yes.
Roosevelt, the president.
Yes.
And so Ethiopians didn't, we didn't have a modern warfare, a credible weapon to engage Italy in modern warfare. But the emperor believed that this is possible. And he has Belgium advisors and Swedish advisors. And it was completely destroyed immediately. This, especially at Maicho, which is 3 hours war. Temben is 10 months. 10,000 Italians have died in Temben. Guerrilla warfare, traditional guerrilla warfare. And so the thing I feel personally, what I learned is that it was a miscalculation to go modern. It was advised by Europeans. He has accepted it. That's a historical moment. He was confronted by many Ethiopians, including the gentleman who was in the League of Nations, Ethiopia, representing Ethiopia. He said, "These people are trying to get us exterminated. We better go guerrilla warfare. We cannot take them offensive war." Ethiopians have this. We even have የግንባር ጦርነት, it means offensive war. And የደፈጣ ጦርነት is guerrilla warfare. Everybody in the world learns guerrilla warfare from Che Mao. Ethiopians have the word before it is invented. የደፈጣ ጦርነት, የጨረቃ ጦርነት. We have a name for it. That's how innovative Ethiopian warfare is. And we just think it's a backward idea.
Yes.
And so when the emperor left, Ethiopia, Ethiopians immediately, in fact, it started really after when the Italians used poison gas and really throw people, Ethiopians, throw them off balance. Most Ethiopians went to guerrilla warfare. They said, no, now is going to go guerrilla warfare.
And to be fair, they started using the gas because even with their conventional arms, they were still not doing well against Ethiopians.
That's it. Yeah, you're right.
Bandalio was removed.
Yeah, but again, even that, for example, the most interesting thing in this front war or offensive war is the fact that Ethiopians at 6 or 7 locations took Italians who are highly armed military forces for days. And that amazed me when I started making this film.
Yes.
The courage of Ethiopians, and how much they stayed with, fighting an enemy that's armed to the teeth is amazing. So I pointed out in the film that there were this battle before Maicho, and the problem is I know the king went, the war is called Maicho because Emperor Haile Selassie was at that battle. So Maicho, but misrepresented.
What does Maicho mean?
Maicho is a location, and it's where he lost the last fight with the Italians. Yes. And then from there he went to Addis and went to Europe.
Yes.
So Maicho is 3 hours, and it's not only that, it is also where all his newly developed military soldiers fought with new modern weapons, but donated weapons left and right. He stood he stood there because he had to fight somewhere. He can't just, abandon it. So he came back. But the problem with Ethiopian history is we call it collectively Maicho War. That's how we go to school, the Maicho War. But it dwarfs Ethiopian sacrifice. It dwarfs Ethiopian courage that you mentioned.
Yes.
That how many times they gave Italians a hard time. In Takaze, Shere, Tamben, Italians literally, Ras Human, Ras Casa, amazing battle they waged against Italians.
And all of this would be in your movie that you're
not because materials are not that easy yet, but we make those points. So to me, this Ambalege, finally the Maicho battle, is became the name of the Maicho tournament, which is not, it's a misnomer. It dwarfs it because you have to wonder, it didn't take 3 hours for Italians to defeat Ethiopians. No, it's a series of confrontation with unequal arm, okay, that Ethiopians withstood. And the loss of Ethiopians also gets underestimated or de-evaluated when you say it's Maicho tournament. It is really the Italian invasion of Ethiopia. And the series of confrontations have to be taught. And hopefully my film takes painstakingly delineating this different war, without material even, creating these different wars. So people know the impact of that war instead of like, it's just finished, Ethiopians were defeated. No, it's a series of confrontation that took place. And then after that, Ethiopians quickly went into guerrilla warfare from different regions, from all this, like the different warriors come from the different Ethiopian ethnic region.
Yes.
And our ethnic division doesn't even like to hear that because those people in those areas went guerrilla warfare on Italians, left and right. And so the Ethiopians shrewdly said, okay, you can invade us, but we make sure we give you hell, so you don't root yourself into our history. And the League of Nations, game is also, if once Italy stabilized, it was never stabilized. The Italians were constantly, that's why they became vicious also, because Ethiopians resisted. See, when you talk about the viciousness of an enemy, like for example, a plantation owner in slavery, if you keep harping on the viciousness, you shortchange Africans. The fact they resisted also provoked the viciousness of white people, white plantation owners. The same thing in Ethiopia. The Italians became vicious because Ethiopians refused to give in. And that is like what's lost when you talk about, extermination is mind-boggling. No Italian went to court. They tried German war criminals, but not Italian war criminals on behalf of Ethiopia, because Ethiopians, our human value didn't matter for Europeans. The new superpowers, U.S., France, England, etc., they gave us to Italy in the first place.
Yes, exactly.
Otherwise, Ethiopia, the only African country in the League of Nations, was betrayed by the League of Nations.
Famously.
Yeah, and the emperor, this is where mistake he made. He believed in the League of Nations. He believed he was in the earlier part of it, that he struggled to make Ethiopia be a member, the only African country.
1924.
And at the whims of Europeans, they were never concerned about Ethiopia except few countries. Most of them just said, we have colonies too, let them have colonies. England especially, they said, we don't want a free Ethiopia. The British, Churchill, well-known vicious man, we named a street for him under the emperor, Churchill Guadana. For what? For giving us to Mussolini. And so, to me, there's this, lost or history that is not well taught. And the other part of it is, even after 1941, that's when the British appeared,
tried to annex Ethiopia.
helping the so-called helping the emperor. But this is again where the emperor, I think, amazingly fought the British, repelled them from, although he went to the U.S. To get them off his back. He played amazing politics here. But what is lost here is Even the British, when they came, we street named schools for them. Their soldiers were a majority Africans.
That's
Sudan,
thank you.
Nigeria,
for
Somalia, British Somalia, British Nigeria, Sudan. These were the people who came. Even Sikh Indians at the Battle of Karan in the Eritrean region, 5,000 Sikh Indians died. We have not a single monument for them. Yeah, we have Churchill Godana. We have Sanford School.
But that's the politics, because the British.
No, it's not really. It's not. It's something we never got rid of. We worship white people. Africans, majority that died for us, they all led by 3 South African whites or 3 Australians or 5 British officers. The majority are Africans. And so have Churchill Godana.
Yeah.
Why not have it for those Nigerians, Tanzanians, Kenyans, Sudanese, who died for us? The fact, it just shows you de-evaluate their participation, you de-evaluate yourself. And therefore, Ethiopia's, what happened to Ethiopia was never valued right, because it's reciprocatory.
Mm-hmm.
When you think Africans did not die for you, but whites died for you or fought for you, although they, to me, you're saying Ethiopians didn't die for you. And that's really what created chaos in the emperor's period, is the Arbeñas were very neglected. The first coup d'etat, their idea was the Arbeñas who fought without salary were betrayed in the new Ethiopia. And comprador, Ethiopians who collaborated with Italians became the new power structure. And so these are contradictions, real, but underestimated. When you underestimate them, you mislocate history. To me, it doesn't serve Ethiopian history. Ethiopian history, the gallant, the oppression, etc., is lost when we pay attention to, as if there's a film here I'll show you, made by Americans. Ethiopia is 3 seconds in that story. What happened in Ethiopia? The whole war. Before my father thinks Second World War began in Ethiopia, and I used to laugh at him because my Indian teacher told me something else, and my father is backward. He could not have facts right, but for him he said it began there. Poison gassing Ethiopians is the war beginning for him.
Yes.
Now, the other part of it is that the fact that the war, Italy's war, until Hitler emerges, was Ethiopia was their obsession. I show you one whole hour is about how they could not, Mussolini's generation, and poets and writers said we will have to revenge. We cannot make history having been defeated by a black race, a savage black race. This is what they said. The scar of Adwa is that, the first part of it.
Yes,
for me, we forget, how much, until Hitler came, there was no European war. Mussolini joined him 41 or something in that area. Now, how in the hell, what is the first part was Italy's European nation obsessed to destroy Ethiopian history and Ethiopian people.
And that was the last independent African space.
And how in the hell would you participate in an educational system that makes you subordinate to an act that comes after the major act of war on you? Neo-colonial mindset. To me, my father said, damn, he is right. He is right. The Second World War was about Ethiopia. It began in Ethiopia. Not when Hitler went to Poland and Austria, etc. No, it began when Ethiopia was violated by the League of Nations, participation or nod.
Are you the first black filmmaker or the first filmmaker to tackle this subject?
Well, I'm not. I don't know that. I'm not going to say that. I don't want even the burden of that. But to me, that there's a complication, ownership of the footage.
Talk about the struggle, because
Yeah.
we speak about the licensing fees,
Yeah.
the runaround. Talk about the
Yeah,
struggle.
because what you have to know is, even this applies even to your area, Caribbeans fighting for England.
Yes.
We fought against Italians. Some of our people fought with the Italians. All of us are filmed. This film belongs to our history. Yet the superpowers, when they vanquished Germany and Italy, took all copies of this and they peddle it, even including Italy. Everybody peddles it. Everybody has a right, Europeans, but not Africans. And this is what I faced 30 years trying to find the footage of my ancestors, right or wrong, fighting with or against. It belongs to us. We have to liberate it. So for me, it took a lot of my financing. It took me years to really get the rights for it. To some, I haven't even got rights yet. I don't care. I'm going to start the fight with it, because I think African filmmakers need to wake up. If they want to make a film in Cameroon, Kenya, they have to know that the footages of our history is owned by these Europeans who literally, killed us. And so it's not an easy situation. And that's what I was saying. I think, our history in it is de-evaluated by our own selves, our own academia. When we teach, we make it subordinate to the European war, and then we miss the point. Even Wingate, a school named after him. He came with the emperor. He was the one protecting the emperor, we're told. Okay, and he is credited for bringing guerrilla warfare to Ethiopia. And not only that, I'll show you a movie made by Americans and the British. Took the same war he brought to Ethiopia to Indochina, and where he died or disappeared. This itself shows you Ethiopians didn't
devaluing.
The guerrilla warfare. When he came, he came twice, sent by the emperor before the war, once or twice. When he came, he saw these guerrilla fighters and took notes from them. He made Balai Zaleka Sanford, not him. They met Balai Zaleka. They saw these Ethiopians completely uncomprehendable by the European mindset of people. And they saw them just fighting and regular. They just took Italians. Okay, we're gonna see how long you're gonna stay in my land. This is what was going on. They came and looked, and then they said he incorporated them with the army that the emperor and him brought to Gojam. They they merged together, but the guerrilla fighters he did not invent. But it's credited, because how would Africans create? Although I think the Maos also waged guerrilla warfare against England, and so it's an African, method of war.
And they came to Ethiopia for refuge to the Mau and were armed by the emperor.
Yeah.
But I know you have a lot of work to do. Thank you for your kindness. What do you want people to take away from this film? And talk to us, because I know the fundraising is still available. I'm mobilizing my audience. We have the fastest growing Rastafari platform on the internet right now. So I'm mobilizing my audience to spend some money with you. How can they support this film, and what do you want the takeaway to be?
Well, to me, it's like restoring the history that's snatched from us. It's my ancestors' story. Ethiopians from all the regional, from all the regions. And when I say that, it's not all Ethiopians, but with the participation of regional guerrilla fighters, Ethiopia sustained and retained its independence. That's all I want to say. To me, that courage, that history, it's not like we have to prepare for a war to come idea, but the war has morphed into digital war.
Yes.
We need those kind of Ethiopian courageous fighters in the new world, in the new technology, in the new warfare style. We need to be learning a lesson of courage and principle. When you face a humongous enemy, and outside that, the other part of it is, for me, it's a history I neglected. It's a history I sinfully walked over,
Yes.
stepped all over it, knew about George Washington's underwear, not my own history. So I'm repenting. It's really a repent. I'm not wanting anything in return. I made this for myself first,
Yes.
and for whoever is destabilized like me about one's history. And if they don't feel they're destabilized, if they feel we're appendages to European idea of civilization, I have no film for them. If somebody is disgruntled like me, I think this film will provoke a lot of fire within people. A lot of young people, I think, will take it and make much more outstanding films, because they will know these resources exist, these materials existed, but there's also a hidden material that Africans are not accessing in the Library of Congress, in Europe, and
We have to liberate these films.
Outside that, thank you for having me, my brother. I have nothing else to say.
Thank you, one of my greatest teachers, and I hope you see that we can have reasoning. Very critical about the emperor. He's actually moderated. When I was a young man, he was a lot more critical. I've noticed he has, by the research he's doing now, he has much more moderated his tone against the emperor, and acknowledges a lot of the successes. We go back and forth every time we come together, because I'm a defender of the emperor choices and things of that nature. But I want everyone to see that you can have teachers that challenge you. He challenges Ayman at every angle to go deeper, to not just take the surface. And it's very important that we don't become yes people, that we're not critical, that we think critically. Yes, we embrace Rastafari, we embrace Ethiopia, but there are, as any society, there are complexities, there are perspectives, and I'm going to try to bring some of those. Because of you, I met young Ethiopians. I learned about RC and the controversies of Menelik, because I met a Roma who could communicate to I as a young brethren when they see me with the emperor pendant, why they were offended or why, and I was able to share my point. There was a study group here, I don't know if you remember, of young Ethiopians that changed my life, you know what I mean, in terms, and I still in contact with some of those young Ethiopians. And this so when you say that you're upset with yourself for being here in America, I push back and say we thank the Almighty that you are here in America, because what you have done here lives long beyond. My children are impacted. My children grew up in this space. So many Howard University students, that's why I say thousands easily. I'm not including your students in your classes. I'm not including those who have gone on to Hollywood, and we don't talk about that part. We could, but I just want to tell you, how old are you now?
I don't know.
Have you passed 80?
I'm not there yet,
Okay,
but I know I'm
but you're
near the planet.
Esteemed elder, I just want to tell you while I can, and then this will not be the last interview. When the movie comes out, we'll do a special feature.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
Take care, my brothers. Be strong.
Yes. And there you have it, Haile Gerima, our premier pioneer African filmmaker. We are here telling the lion story. Why? Because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the lion's voice. Blessings.
Well, this about them in Adwa. Ethiopian, it's time to stand and liberate Mama Africa. Battle in Adwa, I see tens of thousands of soldiers. Now you bring the warrior, them fighting in Adwa. Tell them that no slave master could ever come take over Africa. Battle in Adwa, tell them see the ark of the covenant, them won't come take over.
They tried to ambush, push. Didn't know the power lion, we run the bush. Chop down the wicked with sword and flesh hook. All the great Ras Makonnen. Ride on them horse and slew off them gunmen. In judgment, Italy you found filthy. In the Vatican where they practice necromancy. Bakula Adwa 1896. Get whipped with stones and sticks. Iron rollers coming down from high region, crushing your troop and legion. There's no division when all the tribes come together to defend with wives and with mothers and the land of our fathers. King Menelik leaves the races, young to far right, 4 years in the passage. Try to live in peace, the wicked always on a rampage. When you check the history, you see who's the real savage. At night while they sleep, move me with the damage. Giving thanks for life, chopping heads in the silence. So much bloodshed for Africans to be free. Can't forget about the Zulu, Ashanti. So don't press her, you should have known better. The Ark of the Covenant stays in Ethiopia.
Adwa, Ethiopian, it's time to stand and liberate Mama Africa. Battle in Adwa, tell them that no slave master could ever come take over Africa. Battle in Adwa, tell them I see tens of thousands of Bingi warriors, them fighting in Adwa. Don't know, for the Ark of the Covenant, them won't come take over.
Yo, what's going on at the break of dawn? I'm hearing gongs. Everyone is running for arms, chatting the war is on. Just heard a sound from Menelik II, saying everyone grabbing a weapon. Hey yo, it's Armageddon. I see the enemies intruding. Good over evil, confident we're not losing. Even the women on the front line, barefoot gun shooting. Black liberation, worldwide revolution. Zimbabwe, South Africa, the same revolution. Defending ourselves against colonial pollution. Hey yo, I be that warrior, seated in the hills, waiting for the sound from the king to charge a battlefield. Rap for your shield. What's wrong with these fascists? Why can't they humble and be still? Yo, it's necessary. We wage war with the enemy, standing up for justice. Yo, it's our serenity. Can't deprive the black race of our dignity. I and I praise the Falasha for its God has set its energy. Energy for its God has set its energy.
Adwa, Ethiopian, it's time to stand and liberate Mama Africa. Battle in Adwa, I see tens of thousands of soldiers. Now you're being warrior, them fighting in Adwa. Tell them, no slave master could have come take over.